On this episode of Eye on Gauteng, we're celebrating Women's Month. Join us as we take a look at some of the initiatives designed to empower and uplift females of all ages. All happening right here in the Gauteng City Region. With the 9th of August being Women's Day here in South Africa, citizens marked the 61st anniversary of the Women's March to the Union Buildings. In 1956, over 20,000 women presented petitions to Prime Minister J.G. Stradom in protest of the racist pass laws under the apartheid regime. Women have continued to play a pivotal role in advancing South Africa politically, economically, and socially. Both government and the private sector have identified the necessity of developing women from an early age. At Aurora Girls High School in the township of Soweto, the Gauteng provincial government launched the Empower a Girl Child to Lead campaign. Addressing issues such as teenage pregnancy, HIV, gender-based violence and inequality were among the top priorities of the campaign.
We know that as a youth, we are the future for the country. So if you don't empower us, then definitely it means South Africa is in doom.
What issues are young girls struggling with today?
The typical issues, your teenage pregnancy, but the most fundamental issue is your blessers. So the blessers are a huge problem, not because we want to have blessers, because we're not provided at home. So basically that's the only solution we find to doing so, we get blessers.
Well, government is here today, but what do you think that government can actually do to help young girls today?
I think the government should actually start implementing what they preach. Yes, they can come to each and every school and go to each and every school, but then can they implement what they're actually preaching to us every day? Yes, they can come every year and whatnot, and we'll be happy to actually welcome them in our schools, but the most important part is to actually implement what they're preaching to us. That's the only thing we want. We want them to implement what they promise us as the youth of South Africa.
Whose responsibility do you think it is to empower young girls in South Africa today?
I think the society at large is actually responsible for empowering each individual, because we cannot expect the government to go to each and every local community and motivate. But I think you can actually motivate us as the youth, our mothers can actually do that, because it all starts at home, then the government can intervene.
The field of STEM, or science, technology, engineering and mathematics, has long been male-dominated, not just in South Africa, but universally. But the times, they are a-changing, with many private sector-led initiatives designed to boost the economic participation of women. ThoughtWorks is a global technology consultancy with an African presence in Johannesburg. Since 2013, through its Black Girls Code initiative, previously disadvantaged female scholars spend a Saturday in the work environment and learn how to code.
We support girls between the ages of 7 and 17 and expose them to different aspects of technology, teaching them actually how to write software programs and playing games, and generally just exposing them to different career paths that they could follow in the fields of science and technology. We started off just with a couple of girls, I think around 20 girls, and now every workshop is around 60. A lot of thought workers are volunteers, and we actually come up with a curriculum. We assist by teaching the girls, mentoring them on the day, and we also have meet-up groups where we invite developers and business analysts and anybody working in the tech space to volunteer. What I enjoy about it is seeing how these girls grow and develop over time. We've seen some of the girls come back year after year. There's one girl in particular who her career paths have changed whenever you ask her, but often some of the examples are very technical, like quantity surveying or going into the science field, and even programming, learning to become a developer. It's important because a lot of these girls just are not exposed to this world. So what they've said is that, the careers that they thought they could go into are the traditional ones, like becoming a teacher or a nurse or an accountant, and it never crossed their minds that they could do something in the tech space. And technology is growing, and we need developers, and we need business analysts, and we need technical project managers, and so hopefully we're contributing to that pool of people.
the Department of Science and Technology and the British Council hosted high school girls in an interactive forum in Tshwane. Design and educational technology consultant Karen Walstra advocates that STEM learning should begin from early childhood.
I think the first thing we've got to do is not even look at the technology. We've got to be teaching children to be critical and creative thinkers. We've got to get them to be thinking outside of the box and then introduce the technology. And I think we introduce the technology from when they're very, very little, that we shouldn't just assume that little children shouldn't be able to code or shouldn't be able to think creatively. Small children, before they come to school, actually think more creatively than when we've put them into the schooling system. The schooling system depletes some of our creativity. So we need to change that. We really need to make children thinkers. I do think that we need to empower the caregivers who look after the children. So I think that's a starting point, that we can't just assume that people have the knowledge. And I think a lot of money should be spent on how we upskill the caregivers who have to look after these tiny, tiny little children, because they talk about the first 1,000 days as the most critical. And yes, I do agree that there's a huge need there. And then looking at the different kinds of resources within those spaces. So upskilling the people and then providing resources and teaching people to make resources with available material that you can be teaching children.
The aim of the event was to expose girls to career possibilities by engaging directly with female scientists.
We're trying to build sort of understanding between South Africa and the United Kingdom, mostly around opportunities for young people in terms of science. So we work predominantly with early career researchers. So we're talking about young researchers who are at the PhD level or master's level. So even with this program, we're trying to build sort of bridges between the science community and learners at school, because we do believe that encouraging science, especially for learners, is incredibly important. And in terms of women and girls, particularly in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, we think it's incredibly important to try and get more girls into careers in science. I think that particularly amongst girls, they don't see themselves as, as having this career in science, and they don't know about the opportunities out there. So many girls think of, careers in science, they think of, the usual things like become a doctor or, they don't see themselves as possibly having even a career in research. So we have, in terms of our program today, invited some researchers who are doing work that's really practical, that has practical applications. For example, using iris technology in mobile devices. So we want young learners to be able to see that science has very practical solutions in terms of daily life, and that they themselves can get involved in other career paths. There are so many careers available to them, not just in terms of the usual careers that we think of. I started as a high school teacher, and so I have a very good sense of how difficult it is in terms of encouraging more learners to take up maths and science, and particularly STEM subjects. And I think that is quite topical as well at the moment in terms of the debate around removing mathematics as a compulsory subject. And with learners when they go into careers, or when they're trying to choose at grade 9 level, to thinking of what they're going to do, many of them don't consider STEM. They think of it as something that's unobtainable. And I think that by providing them with role models, like today they'll be meeting other female role models who have come from from very disadvantaged backgrounds, have faced all kinds of challenges, but who are really excelling in their science. And I think that's what young people need. They need real role models. They need to hear about science in South Africa. They don't need to just think of science is taking place somewhere else, or technology taking place somewhere else. That we have such a vibrant local knowledge economy here, that there's so much happening right here at the Department of Science and Technology, across the road at the CSIR, that there's brilliant research taking place and brilliant people that have really overcome all kinds of odds to be able to get to where they are today. We do have private sector partners who have corporate social investment programs. For example, they're working around STEM, encouraging STEM in various ways, working with the Department of Basic Education, for example. But there are still huge challenges in terms of being able to see the actual changeover, in terms of particularly having more learners exit the grade 12 system with strong maths and science subjects, and being able to take up university positions, etc. So I think there's still still a lot more that needs to be done in terms of working with the private sector, particularly around, for example, getting more learners into science, and also getting those that are at university, ensuring that they do graduate and that they are able to be employed thereafter.
The DST's Deputy Director General for Institutional Planning and Support, Tommy Makode, says that encouraging young girls into STEM careers is not just a South African issue, but a global challenge.
I think one of the challenges has been that post the Cold War period, you will recall that at the height of the space race between the USA and USSR, there were a lot of people that were being driven to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, because every parent wanted their child to be part of this big thing that was happening at that point, which was the space race. And you'll find that in those countries there were a lot of young people that started pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And our challenge is that historically, you will recall that under the leadership of the National Party, black people were discouraged from pursuing careers in science and technology, to the extent that Verwoerd said, well, we're not capable of pursuing those careers. So having highlighted those challenges, I think it's an opportune time that as a Department of Science and Technology, we started a number of years ago by introducing what we call National Science Week. It's a week in which we sort of focus everyone on activities around science, technology and engineering and mathematics, where we're trying to attract, where we're trying to inspire, we're also trying to ensure that we share knowledge with regards to careers that we have in the various fields of science, technology and engineering. We work a lot with the Department of Basic and Education, to the extent that we have a memorandum of understanding which was signed sometimes back in 2006 around this particular field of trying to promote science, technology and related fields of study at schools, in particular physical science and maths. And to that extent, we've been providing support to a number of schools with regards to ensuring that they are able to get young people that can advance to university level. For example, in the Northern Cape, where we're building the square kilometre array, a few years back before the project was started, there were no learners that were pursuing careers or were pursuing maths and science as subjects. And we intervened through the South African Square Kilometre Array project and introduced or supported teachers first by taking them to university for training. Those teachers are back now in Carnarvon. For the first time in the history of Carnarvon, last year we were able to produce about 6 to 7 students that are pursuing careers in maths and science. We've moved further than that. We're now supporting those students at various universities so that they can also come back to that community and support other students.
The DST also works very closely with the Gauteng provincial government.
We work with them quite a lot. If you look across the bridge, there's the Innovation Hub, where we have initiatives that are supporting a number of initiatives that are pursued by the department. For example, in the area of ICT, the Innovation Hub hosts for us what's known as the MLab, which is a group of young people that are coming together to develop apps, applications. Also at the Innovation Hub, we also have NIPMO, which looks at publicly funded research and how you can protect your IP. We also have the National Advisory Council on Innovation, which sits at the Innovation Hub. So we work quite closely with them. In Johannesburg, we support, and they support through the Department of Basic Education, Saibono, which is a science center that's trying to encourage or inspire young people to pursue careers in maths and science as well. So we do work a lot with them. Also in the area of SMMEs, they're working quite closely with the Technology Innovation Agency.
In Tshwane, the Department of Science and Technology and the British Council recently facilitated a direct interaction between female scholars and female scientists. The talks included the science behind a smartphone's ability to scan, recognize your eye, and unlock the device. It also included how density and flotation can be applied to mining and waste reduction, and how aeronautical engineers help advance the design of aeroplanes.
The natural world that we live in, everything is made up of maths and science. And my role today is for the kids to try, or for the young ladies, to try and make that connection so that they can appreciate the subject which they are doing right now in the school phase, so that they can appreciate the significance of doing maths and science and how it can actually help them to understand their purpose in life and what is it that they would like to do and how they would want to do that. The only thing that necessarily captures them is, connecting to them at a level which they can relate to. Not the PowerPoint presentations, no. Just give them a concept and help them with what they know or with what they see in their daily lives. Spot the science in there. Show them where the mathematics is in there. And that is actually the connection that as teachers, because I am a teacher by profession, we fail to do at the younger ages. That is why then I guess they perceive it as these monstrous subjects. It's all about the attitude. If you give them a nice foundation, make the connection. Why are we doing maths? This is the real life application. Then they look at it, they tend to look at it at a different angle. Unlike just giving them a mathematical concept and say this is how we solve it and that's it. And they cannot they cannot even understand why they're doing it. So if you can make them appreciate or understand why we have to do this and how maths actually helps to solve this particular problem, then it becomes easier. Then the interest is generated within. But then if you just make them as separate subjects, they become so abstract and it's frustrating, and so that is why they tend to shy away, because of the attitude or the way it was introduced to them at a very young age.
Through your experience, through your career, are you seeing an uptake or an increase in young women going into this field after school?
Let me say yes and no. Yes, in the fact that some of them have come to realize that matter, which is anything that we see, the walls, the papers, they all have a scientific basis. The no part is, as I said, the attitude, the stereotype that is behind the subjects of mathematics and science. Oh, it is difficult. Oh, you have to be clever. You don't have to be clever to do it. You just have to apply logic. You just have to appreciate things. You just have to be curious. You just have to be investigative. You just have to be inquisitive. Ask why, how, what. So if you can instill that in them from a young age, then things get nicely gelled in. In my age, in my time, I didn't have this. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have internet. I didn't even know what Google is. But here I am today, only because I was inquisitive. If you tell me 1 + 1 is equals to 2, I will ask you, why is it not 11? You see what I mean? So it's all about the attitude that an individual has to say, I'm not going to accept things for the way they are. I want to know why things are the way they are. I'm not going to accept that this is red. Yes, I see it's red, but what makes it red? That is the whole notion behind the logic and the non-cleverness. You don't really have to be clever. You just have to know why things the way they are and how. I don't think it's called Gauteng for no reason. That is the city of gold. I'm from Mpumalanga. It's quite rural. My township is quite underdeveloped. What I knew, TV was the only thing that helped me. I used to live my life through TV, and how do I get behind that screen? And the only way, or the only answer I could come up with is that it's not going to happen here. I have to chase it. Hence I came to Johannesburg. And in Johannesburg, unfortunately, that's where most of the opportunities are. So how do you get to Johannesburg? Make sure you pass your matric with flying colors. Even if you are stricken by poverty, flying colors will buy you a ticket to anywhere, because you're going to get a bursary. Once you get a bursary, you are exposed to university. University, you're exposed to a multiple of things that you can do, to dynamic people, dynamic individuals that will inspire you. Use that and say, how do I get there? given where I am today.
Nanji Sheni works in the field of flotation in minerals processing. While she was a student, she was stabbed multiple times in a violent encounter and had failed her exams. She aims to inspire girls to persevere despite the challenges.
Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't kill yourself when things don't necessarily go as planned, because they do work out. But also read as much as you can. And sometimes you get so focused, because I did my master's, you get so focused in your one particular field and you go so deep into it that you forget about the other things. And it's beautiful to see the value chain that brings. And that's something I recently learned, that seeing the full-on value chain of where your bit fits into the picture.
As a black female scientist in South Africa, have you found the journey to be easy? Because you're probably gold within this field, or have you found that it's been challenging, being in a male-dominated field?
I think it's been a bit of a both. More easy, I think, than challenging. I think, to be honest, actually, because of the whole system that's been in place for affirmative action and everything, it's been great because there are a lot more open doors for females in this day and age than there were before, for black females specifically. But I think also I've come to realize that a lot of black females don't get into it because of a lack of knowledge or just because they're afraid to try, and I think people should try. In terms of the hard aspect of it, it's that thing of you have to know what you know. That's still male-dominated environment where people still expect you to be on par, and they don't necessarily take you seriously if you are a female. Irrespective of affirmative action still exists, and you have to. It may not necessarily be in your workplace, but in meetings with clients or outside, you need to speak up for yourself. You need to be strong, and you need to know everything you know to the T. So yeah, it's got a bit of both in there.
On a broader level, in Johannesburg, Brand South Africa commemorated Women's Month under the theme Be Bold for Change, a call to all global citizens to forge a more inclusive, gender-equal world. They partnered with Owami Women under the Play Your Part initiative.
Owami is a natural fit in the sense that we are actually calling on women in the various communities to come on board and share with us how they are playing their part in the areas of entrepreneurship, in skills development, youth and women empowerment and education. And obviously those pillars are quite critical in positioning South Africa as a competitive nation. I think there's still room for improvement as far as the private sector is concerned, and I say that because of the report that was publicized last month, if I'm not mistaken, where it shows that there's still a gap within the private sector to empower women, and I think that's the challenge that we are facing also as an entity. How do we influence at a corporate level and influence the women agenda? And we also do that through various partners, for instance with the Business Engage, whose focus is really about ensuring that women are recognized and women are empowered and are put in the rightful and competitive positions and are remunerated accordingly. So we make sure that our strategic partners, they contribute towards dealing with the National Development Plan priorities.
From a Brand South Africa point of view, what's the ultimate vision for women in this country?
I just think for us it really is about women being recognized for their abilities and their competencies, and also being rewarded accordingly. And currently that's not where we are, but every partnership is a stepping stone towards reaching that goal. Because we know naturally we are nurturers, we are mothers, we have that urge to go that extra mile, and I think that's that vision and that urge that makes us keep going and looking for this partnership that empowers and celebrates women.
That's all for this month's episode, but you can keep the conversation going by tweeting us at CNBC Africa using the hashtag #IonGauteng.